Hi everyone, we're broadcasting live from the Infinity Festival in Hollywood. I'm Erin Riley on the advisory board and also a professor and founding director of Texas Immersive Institute at the University of Texas at Austin. I'm hosting the podcast here at the show, and we're bringing Silicon Valley innovators together with Hollywood storytelling professionals, taking over one city block in the heart of Hollywood. So I have for a guest here today, BC Biermann of the Heavy Projects. It's great to reconnect with you, Heavy.
Can I just say thank you? It's lovely to sit physically in person across from you.
Yeah.
I can't say how exciting that is, just to be out and about, but then see old friends that I haven't seen in literally years.
Yeah.
So thank you for having me.
So tell me what you're working on recently.
Well, we still have our bread and butter projects, and where we cut our teeth in this world is the augmented reality murals that we pioneered, I don't know.
Over a decade.
Let's call it 12 years. And
I can be like, I remember you when.
yes, I kind of remember myself then when we were doing them guerrilla style for free for the love of the game.
Yeah.
And then it became a business, so we still get paid. And we're doing one with Deloitte in Houston, and we're going to work with some local artists there. We like to not see ourselves as colonizers of other people's space when we go into other people's cities. So we're trying to pull in local artists to collaborate with.
Oh, that's great.
We've got that vertical, and then we are just naturally have been in the blockchain space since at least 2017, which is kind of OG for that space.
Mm-hmm.
And
my students say that you were talking about it back then. Like, how did you know about this?
Yes. And like I was saying earlier, we all have our stories of what we bought and then sold and bought and then sold.
Exactly.
And we
Yes.
lost our money. But now we're doing okay, and we're still involved in blockchain, and we're integrating blockchain, AR and NFT, and working, I can't say yet who the stakeholders are, but working in that space to do AR and NFT at live music events.
Fantastic. So I want to go back in history a little bit about where you get, and it's, describe to me, or describe to the audience, a little bit about your giant art murals, what it takes to do something like that, how you were inspired, because you are a pioneer when it comes to augmented reality, and I don't think a lot of people were thinking back then. They were all obsessed with VR, right?
Yeah.
And we were like, what the hell?
We had a lot. There was at AWE, which is used to be what was it before?
Oh gosh, space?
AR? I thought it was like ARE or something.
AR, yeah.
Okay, well what is now
it's World Expo.
It's global.
It's global.
So there used to be many heated, spirited debates, even on stage, about AR versus VR.
Yeah.
And my take was always the tethering to the physical world is just the biggest advantage. And it's to me, because it keeps you present, it keeps you engaged in your environment. I know that's why Niantic it pushed and was so successful with Pokemon Go, as it got people outside. And it brought attention to AR in a way that nothing else did, right? Because when I would tell people about AR, family or friends or whatever, just glazed looks and what are you talking about? But that helped us just in terms of, okay, what is this thing? In terms of our own process, maybe we were just dumb and naive because it's so difficult to do and still is. But as an academic, I've been researching illegal commercial advertising in public spaces versus street art. And here in LA, in particular, because it's so pervasive.
Yeah,
right?
Same in Austin.
Yeah, and when I say pervasive, I'm really talking about illegal advertising.
Right.
Where the building owners will cut a deal with the advertisers and allow for signage on their buildings, which isn't permitted by the city. But then the city, like with a wink, overlooks it. This is 10 years ago. At the time, they had 3 inspectors for the entire city of Los Angeles looking for illegal signage. But at the same time, literally hundreds of street artists were getting arrested for doing essentially the same thing, right?
Right.
Artistic messaging versus commercial messaging. One was sanctioned, one was not.
One was a wink and one was not.
Totally,
and
because
of course, always the underdogs get screwed.
And to make it even worse, the LA City Council was having their pockets lined by the outdoor advertisers. They were at the time I think the highest paid city council in the country.
Wow.
Largely from that vertical. So that was what I was interested in as an academic, but I don't like to just keep my academia
No, we're applied.
siloed. So I'd been a coder, a developer for years, and had been working in code largely to pay for grad school, and then came upon this new technology called augmented reality, and was like, oh, this is interesting because I can take digital stuff and attach it to stuff in the real world, and it doesn't just remain digital. There's this attachment that I thought was cool. And I was in New York at the time, and I had run across, or actually, I had published a paper, and an artist and activist in New York at the time, a guy named Jordan Seiler, who still works with us from time to time, was doing billboard street level ad takeovers, where he would go through and overnight with a bunch of heavy hitting street artists, remove a lot of the billboard advertising from bus stop shelters and replace it physically with street art. Illegal. He stands firmly behind his work, so I'm not disclosing anything that he doesn't publicly disclose himself, proudly. And he found my paper, contacted me. I was in New York visiting, and we got together, had sushi, and thought, okay, well, let's just use augmented reality to do this. So we did. And then we did our first AR campaign just on our own, using the billboards in Times Square and then putting street art onto the billboards using a now defunct piece of software from Mataio, which later got bought by Apple. But they produced amazing tracking. And that just kind of took off. And we started doing our own murals, South by Southwest and University of Geneva and Perth and St. Louis and Pittsburgh and whatever. And we've been doing those ever since on our own. And the idea was that we allow artists to put their stuff out in the world in AR that maybe they couldn't physically.
Right.
And we also allow for a dialogue where people can interact with the murals. Some of the stuff we did in Australia was allowing people to sort of express their opinion about street art in those spaces. Should it be illegal? What are the thoughts? So a form of communication. And then my other partners now, Chris Nunez and Scott Clark, same mindset. I met those guys. I met Chris at AWE a decade ago.
Yeah.
Very similar mindset. So we're all ethically, ethos-wise on that same page, and we're still trying to push in that area.
Yeah.
People pay us now. There's other considerations, but we're still trying to stay true to the sort of core ethos of allowing people to participate in public spaces.
Yeah, and I'm one of your favorite fans. I
Thank you.
completely agree with you on your ethos. I feel like I wrote a paper years ago about that augmented reality is a democratizing voice.
Yeah.
Right? That it really unlocks things in our public spaces that are not being told, you know? And I think that's why I've always loved augmented reality. Not only does it get us physically connected with each other, like my game I built, you know, to get families socially interacting in a giant augmented reality whack-a-mole, you know, just to get up, like get off the couch, people, and get up
Sure.
and play, right? But also the work that you're doing with artists, you know, to really have artists' voices tell about their cities, things that are not being told, is really interesting. Your ethos really ties with, connects closely with what I think is one of the biggest controversies going on in Immersive today, which is, what is the Metaverse? Who fucking owns the Metaverse, right?
Well, hopefully nobody ever.
Yes, right? I would agree with you. But, you know, it gets to kind of your original thoughts about, like, advertisers. These are brands and big companies are moving in. They're wanting to take over. You know, from being in the early stages of, like, guerrilla connecting, you know, making this, how do we protect it?
Such a great question. I can't, unfortunately, point to an analog where it was successfully protected. I mean, look at what's happened to the internet.
Yeah.
I know that Tim Berners-Lee and Vint Cerf have been like not happy with how the internet has unfolded and how it's being used and how social networks have exacerbated the problem of isolating people into their echo chambers. Look, I'm always really torn with this. I have a 10-year-old who just is such a pure of heart right now and gets onto YouTube 100% to teach himself about quantum physics and black holes.
I call YouTube university too. I mean, it's a wealth of knowledge.
Totally.
Yeah.
And
but also a ton of junk.
and he could care less about any of the cesspool stuff.
Yeah.
And that none of it's coming from me. It is all his heart wants to learn.
Yeah.
And it's a great tool.
Yeah.
But also
literacy at its best.
Yes. But also all the other crap that's on it. In terms of the metaverse and immersion, it's a real question, and I think human beings learn through dialogue. So what you're doing right now is super helpful, and thank you. Keep doing it. Hopefully the talk I had earlier today was not about me pitching our company and our stuff. It was about just, hey, we need to have conversations around this. It's not for me to define what the metaverse is. I hope it's an open, and this is where blockchain, I think, is going to be a real player in this world, and I have hope around DeFi, decentralized institutions.
Yes.
I have hope. So if there is a proper commingling at the early stages of decentralized networks, and we do have conversations with the players like Facebook and others and Google and the ones that are always in this game, and we've had those conversations. But if we can get people to understand that it's easier to do things, and by the way, it can be more profitable.
Right. For
Yes,
everybody.
I don't have an issue with making money.
Not just that 1%.
Right. Yes, it is cliche, but a rising tide can lift all boats. And by the way, you can make more money in the process. If you do this in the morally responsible, socially responsible way from the beginning, as opposed to trying to reverse engineer all of your mistakes. Look at big tobacco.
Yeah.
Right? Just stop lying and just
Be honest.
yes. So that's why I was disheartened
Accept
with.
your faults in what you
Of
did
course,
wrong.
we're all from an individual level,
Yeah.
right? I don't care if it's me or my 10-year-old, or my 7-year-old, or Facebook.
Yeah.
You don't learn or grow if you don't own up to what you did. And they've been up to some no good.
Yeah.
So I didn't hear anything in this Meta launch that said to me that Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg in particular, who's such a powerful influence in the company still, had, maybe he has internally, but I just didn't hear it externally about learning, growing, accepting responsibility, acknowledging the power that you've got. So I'm hopeful. I don't want to disconnect from them. I don't use them, but I have to acknowledge there's such a powerful player in this world and will continue to be.
Yeah. You have to be at the table with them. We have to have these discussions, and hopefully we have influence enough to shift, change the conversation.
I think that,
actions. I don't want to just converse about it. I want it to
correct. It can't be ivory towered.
Yeah.
And I think maybe the closest analog, and let me know what you think, or metaphor, is this ship is leaving port.
Yes.
And it's like those tankers that I see out in, off the coast of Huntington that just broke all the oil lines.
Yes.
But they've left port. Those things don't turn on a dime, right? But we can, through reasonable,
Massaging.
yes, influence, maybe pivot that course just enough.
Yeah.
Just enough. And if we don't figure it out, if we don't start all learning how to row in the same direction, we're already having problems, and we'll continue to have the same problems.
Yeah. So, thinking about this shift and where we're going, this big ship, this giant ship. help kind of the non-user or person who's just getting into this space understand how it's been shifting for over a decade, but in the past 18 months with the pandemic, I think it's shifted drastically. And people are starting to realize that there is a shift in culture and commerce. And with the blockchain kind of being a foundation of where the metaverse is going, it's what is the economy? And I try helping define it, but I'm still learning myself. The difference between a coin and a token and an NFT, which you are involved in all three, and I'm probably missing a few.
Okay, it's a great question, and just frankly, anybody who's even just as immersed in this world, my partner Chris Nunez is much more immersed than I am. Anybody who's honest with themselves will recognize it's just massive and changing daily, and it's difficult to keep up with, right? And maintain your sanity, and maintain a family life,
right,
and other things.
I don't want to just be stuck to my phone.
Correct.
Checking
my crypto balance. So, which I do,
it's
but
like the stock market. It's totally the stock market.
Well, it's the stock market that runs nonstop.
Yeah.
And at least the stock market has 9 to 4:30 hours, which are reasonable.
Yeah, this is global.
But to the question is, one, you have the underlying technology of blockchain, and we can just talk about the Ethereum blockchain, because it's largely running DeFi, or decentralized finance, which is just one, really difficult to get your mind around, because there's a new exchange popping up every 5 minutes, and the SEC is figuring out how do we regulate this? Should we regulate this? What are they going to do, for example, with stablecoin, which is pegged 1-to-1 to the dollar? And how are they going to regulate interest-bearing? Are these securities, or are these not securities, and so forth? So you have the whole sort of federal regulatory body trying to catch up. And I don't have an issue with that, personally. I think some healthy regulation, as long as it's not punitive, where it's like, we don't like you, and we're going to just make all these terrible laws. As long as it's safeguarding the consumer authentically, I'm fine with that. I want to be safeguarded, right? I want to know that these exchanges and these interest-bearing accounts are taking my money and doing responsible things with it on loan,
right,
as they pay me interest. In terms of NFTs, we can talk about, or non-fungible tokens. Those also run on the Ethereum blockchain. Largely, you can run on signed chains like Polygon. You still have to pay gas to get them off and on chain. And gas is essentially happening, right, to verify the transactions on the blockchain, or just trying to put things as briefly as possible. And it's become a bit prohibitive, just to be honest. In some cases, people are paying more gas fees than they are for the actual NFT that they're buying,
right,
which is prohibitive. However, early to mid-spring 2022, Ethereum is set to move from proof of work to proof of stake, which should, I think, mitigate, if not eliminate, the gas fees. And also, it makes it much more environmentally friendly in terms of the processing power to run the verifications.
That's great, because a lot of artists were concerned
Yes.
about the environmental issues.
Me included.
Yeah.
And I think it's not as bad as pop culture, at least in terms of the articles that I've read, make it out to be. I think it's not as environmentally destructive. But I'm totally in favor of the transition to proof of stake. That said, what you're seeing now is, and what you have seen for, let's just say 3, 4, 5 years, is still the early adopters, right? I mean, I'm adopting this, one, because I love blockchain technology and what it can do, but I also believe in decentralized finance, and I see this as my participation in DeFi. And NFTs are almost a sort of but a digital artistic representation of that participation. That you are a player and a participant in this world, because just me buying ETH, no one can see that. But me having an NFT is a sign that I am a participant. And I'm participating not just to make money, but because I believe in the underlying technologies in terms of decentralizing institutions, in particular decentralizing institution of finance. I can take out loans now against my crypto holdings at much cheaper rates when I want to take them out. The autonomy that I've got now over my own money is much greater than it used to be.
Beyond the finance, I also see NFTs as a real shift in talking about copyright and ownership. Wouldn't you say?
Yes. This is also so it's in a sense decentralized gallery space.
Yeah.
Where, and I don't have an issue with galleries, but they can be intimidating.
Make a lot of money too.
And a lot of money.
Yeah.
And they're political, right?
Yeah.
So now everybody's a participant in the gallery, or can be. And I like that. I think that's fantastic. It does the gallery right now is generally OpenSea. Coinbase is launching their NFT platform. I don't know.
Soon.
I'm on the list. Let's say December, I think they said.
My wallet for them says it's coming.
Right. Right. And by being an early participant, you also open up yourself to airdrops of the tokens that are representative of these institutions and these platforms and these DAOs.
Yeah.
And
would you say those tokens are like stock in the company?
in a sense, yeah, so they call them ICOs, right? Now there's particular types of tokens, there's utility tokens, there's governance tokens. Those all are types of Ethereum tokens and run on the Ethereum blockchain. But they do serve different functions. And in terms of the NFT, that wouldn't be sort of representative of stock per se. But there are new projects. Recently there's, mutant gorillas, there's mutant cats, who are DAOs, and your ownership is verified in the DAO by you own the NFT, right?
Yeah.
So it is a sort of a visible sign of your participation in these DAOs. And these DAOs, what they're doing, and this is, again, new territory.
Right.
Regulatory-wise.
Right.
Where the DAOs will then take a certain percent of the proceeds from the NFT sales of, let's say, mutant cats and purchase other blue chip NFTs. So, for example, the DAO will purchase a Cryptoad or a CryptoPunk or a Fidenza, and those basically become holdings of the DAO.
Because they have higher value.
Because they have higher value. So essentially it could raise, although it hasn't, because gas prices have been so prohibitive, but the value of the NFTs that people buy to participate in the DAO. But then also there is a token associated with that DAO. So in the case of mutant cats, it's fish. And that fish has a dollar value, right? With gorillas, it's bananas. I know this sounds insane, but...
Yeah, it's just, but you could change bananas for like culture. That is another DAO I know about with virtual beings. So it's like you come up with a name and it still has the same models.
Yes, and it's developing its own sort of cultural language.
Yeah.
But the bananas and the fish, still you can exchange those on, I think, Uniswap and SushiSwap for ETH, which has dollar value. So there is real world value to them. But they're experiments. And most of this conversation happens on Discord.
I think I was the first professor to actually make Discord part of my classes.
I believe it.
And some of the students were even like, "What's Discord?" I'm like, "I'm a gamer, so y'all are all going to join me in Discord." Like, that's where we're going.
And that's where a lot of this has come, is the gaming world.
Yes.
Because a lot of the language is sort of similar, and so Discord has been the default communication tool for all these disconnected
Slack's
people.
so corporate.
I know. Now we have to, because we have Slack, and now we have to switch to Discord. And then, anyway. So it's Discord and Twitter. Not so much Instagram.
Yeah, I don't know about Twitter. Well, Instagram's owned by Facebook, so I could see why a lot of this community is unhappy with that. But Twitter, I'm actually surprised by because I got burned out by Twitter with all the politics, during the Trump era.
Yes,
Like,
I think we all did.
So you're coming back to Twitter.
Well, I really only communicate about crypto on Twitter. And I don't want to be echo chambery,
Yeah.
but I also do want to avoid the political stuff for now because I'm exhausted.
Yeah, we don't need to be exhausted. We just went through the pandemic.
I'm good. I don't want to disconnect from it. I need to be a voice in this world, but at the same time, I need a mental break.
Yeah. Well, last question.
Sure.
If for these people that you're now dropping knowledge on like how to get involved in this space, what would be the one thing you'd say? Watch this.
In the crypto space, in the AR space?
Both. Let's start with AR.
Okay, because I kind of didn't answer that question, I don't feel like. So let me just quickly address that, which is to get involved in, and by the way, I'm not competitive. I want more people in this space. It's the rising tide lifts all boats, and it's very hard. So to do outdoor murals is a difficult process because the lighting, the tracking, the people walking in front of your art, the murals, right? All the environmental effects make it very difficult to do outdoor augmented reality. So maybe we're still some of the only insane people willing to spend the time to do it.
No. I was just talking with another professor at UT who's figuring out how to make sure that the lens has like a sunglasses so we can see the augmented reality.
Good, fantastic.
I'm like, I need that for my AR field day. That's awesome.
But I'm always happy to talk with other artists and share everything that I know about what I've learned and all the painful lessons along the way. In terms of the crypto space, it's proceed with caution, and go into it with eyes wide open. It's volatile. Even still with blue chips like Ethereum and Bitcoin, it's still volatile, right? Because there's some manipulation still going on with state actors, global state actors. So there's still some manipulation of the prices. So it's just proceed with caution, but also do your research. And if you believe in the underlying sort of value of the currency, I believe in Ethereum in particular because I believe in what that project is doing.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not really in it just so I can make quick, daily trades or day trades and make money.
No, this is a long-term investment.
Totally.
Shifting.
And investing in DeFi.
Yeah.
And if there's money to be made along the way, I'm not opposed to it for sure. But I feel good about it and I can absorb the ups and downs because I believe in it. That's what keeps people, I think, what's called hodling, right? Holding on for dear life when it gets so volatile because you'll see 20% drops. And then when NFTs, I believe in those too. I believe in the democratized participation, the decentralized gallery concept. I believe in that. So,
especially. So all you artists out there, definitely follow BC Biermann and get to know the heavy projects. We're here at the Infinity Festival. Thanks, BC.
Thank you, Aaron. Thanks for having me. I deeply appreciate it. And again, lovely to see you.
Yeah, great seeing you. Thanks.